Deleveraging may be the theme of China's economy for the next 5 to 10 years. In his book, The Debt Crisis, Dalio argues that from the day credit was created, there was a debt cycle. And then you have the economic cycle, the deflationary debt cycle, which has 7 phases. That is, the early stage, the bubble stage, and the top depression stage. The harmonious torso, the ear pushing the rope, the normalization phase of the economic cycle, is not a profound concept. It's not an illusory thing either. When a borrower borrows money, he is actually borrowing money from his future self. At a certain point, borrowers have to lower their spending levels. One person's expenses are another person's income. This micro-phenomenon of borrowing first for consumption and then tightening spending is reflected in the economic cycle at the macro level. We have now reached the stage of austerity. In 2023, everyone generally felt that money was not easy to earn, which was the most intuitive manifestation. So how to get out of this stage? There is only one way to deleverage and reduce the debt burden. From the historical experience, there are no more than 4 ways to reduce the debt burden. First, fiscal austerity. Cut spending. Second, debt contracting and restructuring, forcing debt to disappear. The third is that the central bank prints money to buy assets, while inflation dilutes debt. The fourth is to redistribute wealth by redirecting capital and credit from sufficient to insufficient areas. The so-called harmonious deleveraging is the balanced use of the above 4 measures. Reduce the debt-to-income ratio. Maintain an acceptable rate of economic growth and inflation. If there are enough stimulus measures, such as monetization of debt and currency devaluation, to offset the deflation caused by fiscal austerity or debt default. The housing market, the stock market, and residents' incomes have once again entered a rising stage. This is what we are working towards at the policy level. But these measures will bring different beneficiaries and losers. On the eve of the Lunar New Year, today we use the framework of the debt cycle. Review the major economic events of 2023. The accompanying images in the video contain almost all the shows we have done in the past year. You can go to the homepage of my major platforms to review and watch. After the 1994 tax sharing reform, the majority of fiscal revenue is taken away by the central government, and in order to increase local income, we have to use land financialization to expand our finances. The process of land financialization is actually the process of raising housing prices. The process of increasing the leverage ratio of residents, enterprises, and local governments. If the leverage ratio of residents is too high, it will inhibit the leverage ratio of consumer enterprises, which will cause problems like Evergrande. Excessive local leverage limits investment and economic growth. Even like Haigang, fiscal restructuring is needed. This is the dilemma that China's economy has to face at this stage. In 2023, the property market was cold, and in the real estate downward cycle, the income of local land transfer fees has once again experienced a sharp decline. The social risks that were originally hidden by the housing boom have also begun to emerge. All kinds of bizarre events emerge one after another. For example, the Suzhou independent land incident that state-owned enterprises sued state-owned enterprises. The mighty financialization of land and the monetization of real estate. It drains consumers of their current and future income. The property market can no longer play its due wealth effect. Economic austerity, including fiscal austerity, then began to appear, and social spending was reduced. In order to open source, many places have taken up the idea of increasing non-tax revenue. In May, the addition of parking spaces by Nanning Huibo Company. This is a classic example of a reporting company increasing the value of its collateral by increasing parking fees, using 25 years of public parking rights in exchange for billions of bank loans. It is expected to capitalize on local finances in addition to land. On the other hand, bank profits, which rely on deposit and loan spreads to make money, have been squeezed, and banks have reduced the scale of recruitment. The number of newborns has fallen, and teachers' iron rice bowls are not within the iron round system. A major reshuffle may also follow. Businesses and individuals find it increasingly difficult to make money because the fruits of economic growth are being used to pay off debts. Businesses lose revenue, they optimize and lay off workers. Households consume less. This directly makes cost effectiveness a top priority for residents' consumption. So low-cost prepared dishes entered the campus, focusing on cheap pinduoduo. The market value also officially surpassed Alibaba in the third quarter. In the spring of 2023, Zibo Barbecue exploded, and in the winter, Urban, the northeast of pet powder. In order to increase fiscal revenue, local cultural tourism bureaus are frantically competing for the cake. In the cultural tourism consumer market, the tourist scramble mode for the princess to get on the bus has been turned on. Tourism has become an open-source method and a means to reduce debt everywhere. Its essence is also to provide large-scale financing to the private sector. At this point, some people began to reflect on who actually implanted a single value. Tell everyone that you must have real estate purchase needs. By creating artificially low interest rates to free up productivity for the market economy. It also makes people take on mortgages because of their selfish desires, making residents the end point of debt. The spending power of the whole society has been overdrawn, and social values have become single. Young people experience the powerlessness of reality. Therefore, a large number of young people lying flat chose Shangxiang Temple between going to work and making progress. The economy explodes. Income is flexible debt, but rigid income decreases. Debt is still to be repaid without continuous income. How can local and housing enterprises repay their debts? So we have seen the real estate enterprises and local workouts. Housing companies borrowed in the real estate upward cycle, engaged in land development, and achieved the ultimate level of leverage. It turns out that whoever has the courage to borrow more can make money. But whoever borrows the most now is the one who suffers the most. In March 2023, Hengda, which has been highly anticipated by people, returned to the public eye with a workout report of more than 20 billion yuan. Everyone began to speculate whether the government would come to the rescue of this leading real estate company. The phenomenon of too big to fail may exist, but in fact, global rules have always been selective. Too big to fall in August, the country garden that calls itself the Universe Housing Company. There were 2 consecutive defaults on dollar interest debt in one day. Fengyu owns a mixed ownership real estate company with a background in central enterprises. Sino-Ocean Group also revealed its inability to pay interest on a $20.94 million note. Sino-Ocean's default made everyone suddenly realize that the meaning of austerity has spread from private enterprises to the background of huge central enterprises. The company Evergrande took the initiative to thunderstorm in August, filing for bankruptcy protection and asset restructuring in the United States. The capital behind Evergrande expects to complete the role transition from debtor to creditor, keep debt and unfinished buildings at home and earnings overseas. Obviously, countries would not allow such a thing to happen. At the same time, the drama that he sued himself was still playing out. Evergrande Property sued Evergrande Group in November, hoping to turn the property company into a creditor, become the subject of priority execution of property execution rights. In late September, Sunak followed Evergrande's example and filed for overseas bankruptcy protection. Country Garden was also scared by Evergrande. Long-retired farmer founder Yang Guoqiang visited the construction site wearing a hard hat. Showing his face in public seemed to be telling everyone that he would not be the second one. Zhu Ji. In the fourth quarter, Wanda was still actively repaying its debts compared to other real estate developers that had been lying flat. Wang Jianlin is facing a gambling agreement to sell Wanda Cinema and Wanda Plaza to complete the return of funds. Wanda Cinema will no longer rise and fall. This is caused by the run on assets for cash under austerity. Heroes End. We looked back at the bankruptcies of Yamanichi Securities and Lehman Brothers, the bursting of local crises and the bursting of bubbles. It became the price of the transformation of the financial system in Japan and the United States. The experience of Japan and the United States tells us that we cannot choose not to go to work because of the pain of debt attendance or the harm to the interests of some people. This is a short-term way to deal with the debt crisis. In addition to corporate debt, in 2023 we saw that local debt issues, which are inextricably linked to land finance, also emerged frequently. The central government said that it will not cover the hidden debts of local governments. The essence is to let those city investment companies that borrow debt, but invest in ineffective assets, lose the government's endorsement. Use the short-term pain model to solve the debt problem, but give a candy as well as a slap. We must also guard against moral hazard and systemic financial risk. The two sides tried their best to strike a balance. In early 2023, Zunyi Daqiao, the largest urban investment company in Zunyi, announced an extension of 15.6 billion in debt. In the past 20 years, Zunyi has set an example for bankers. And the high-cost implicit debt, where the stock is replaced by rolling over, workout, lowering interest, or even zero perpetual debt, may be our own unique model for solving the debt problem. In short, a painless model is impossible. It's just who the pain is on. The sluggish performance of the stock market and the housing market. So that the huge market can no longer find an industry that can consistently generate high returns. Trusts that rely on real estate can maintain the Ponzi scheme brought about by nature. So there began to be frequent thunderstorms, and the planters passed through the thousands of flowers in the capital markets. Leaves don't touch the body's spending. But let me again advise everyone that the stock market is not so easy to make money. That is to make the debt short-term problems, with time for space, can be delayed. Many people hope to take advantage of the market downturn to squeeze out bubbles and low-quality enterprises. However, whether the housing company goes bankrupt or not, faced with unfinished buildings, residents seem to have only one way to continue repaying their mortgages. After all, the unfinished building is not a rotten building, but a rotten debt. The real estate companies represented by Evergrande are just a product of the times. We've had 3 decades of debt-fueled urbanization and industrialization. The future is likely to be plagued by long-term debt monetization. Therefore, there was the ridicule of our MB Zoo Jae-in.